But the guest list is still unsettled. Two big names have already dropped out: China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin. Could Joe Biden be next? The US president is supposed to arrive 2 days early. So this Thursday, he's supposed to arrive on Thursday, but his travel plan is facing a last-minute hiccup. The First Lady, Jill Biden, has tested positive for the Wuhan virus. What about the president? His latest test results came back negative, but the White House says he will be tested at regular intervals. He will be monitored for symptoms. Now, as things stand, Biden will come to India. His latest schedule was released after Jill Biden's diagnosis, so the assumption is that he will travel. But what if he tests positive later today or tomorrow? What if he starts showing symptoms? Then things could get tricky. Biden last contracted the Wuhan virus in July 2022. He isolated himself inside the White House. All his work was carried out on Zoom. Will there be a repeat this time? We looked at the latest guidelines from the US Center for Disease Control. If you test positive, you must isolate for 5 days. That is the minimum. If you're sick and awaiting results, same thing, isolation. And if you're negative, well, then you're free to carry on without isolation. So Joe Biden needs a negative test result to board that flight to India. His other option is riskier. The president can choose to ignore the CDC rules. We should have an answer in the next 2 days, either way. But talk about bad luck. Biden has invested a lot in this visit to India. He wants to reach New Delhi in advance. He wants to hold talks with Prime Minister Modi. Some key issues are on the agenda, like the possible sale of mini nuclear reactors, drone deals, new visa rules, the war in Ukraine. There's a lot to talk about. So it's supposed to be a very important trip for him. Also, Biden's first as the US president to India. It would be a shame if the Wuhan virus derails it. His absence would also be a setback to the G20 agenda. After all, this is a financial grouping. And the United States is the biggest economy of the world, also one of the biggest polluters in the world. So you need Joe Biden in New Delhi for key decisions on climate change, on debt relief, on supply chains, basically on most issues. But beyond policy, this is also about optics. It's about that moment when you take the family photo. Imagine a picture without Putin, Xi, and Biden. It's all that people will talk about, not the dozens of leaders who attended, but the big three who did not. Having said that, it is out of India's control. You cannot help it if Biden gets the Wuhan virus or if Xi Jinping puts petty politics over global good. All you can do is prepare. So let's check in on how New Delhi is getting ready for the big event. The final touches are being added. The entire city will soon turn into a fortress. The plan is to deploy 130,000 security personnel. This includes the Delhi Police, the Central Forces, and the National Security Guard. Snipers will also be posted atop buildings in central Delhi. It's like nothing that India has seen before. The last big diplomatic gathering was back in 1983. New Delhi hosted the 7th summit of NAM. That's the Non-Aligned Movement, NAM. Dozens of world leaders gathered in New Delhi that summer. But that was 1983. Today, the situation is much different. The technology is much more evolved. The security challenges are more dynamic. So the logistics will be a nightmare. And if you happen to live in Delhi, I have advice for you. Don't make weekend plans. Stay home. Road traffic and metro services will be regulated from Thursday night. Your delivery apps will also not work. So no Swiggy or Zomato. I know it sounds like a lot of trouble, but trust me, such summits are worth it because they bring international attention on the country, its people, its culture, and its progress. And India is trying to do the same. If you travel through Delhi, you can spot some new additions like murals and sculptures. All of them represent India's culture and achievements. Of course, they come at a cost. The government has not revealed the exact cost of hosting this summit, but most reports quote the same figure, around 1,000 crore rupees. That's $120 million. How much have other host nations spent on G20? Indonesia spent around $33 million for the Bali summit last year. New Delhi is spending 4 times that amount. But for India, this is not just a rotational presidency. It's about announcing its arrival on the world stage, about taking a place at the high table of diplomacy. So here's hoping that the summit outcomes can match the cost.